The silence on the line was thick with his shock, a silence that spoke volumes. He had no answer for my question about the car, no plausible explanation for his actions. The carefully constructed facade of his escape was crumbling, piece by painful piece. I could almost hear the frantic whirring of his mind, trying to formulate a lie, an excuse, anything to regain control. But there was nothing, just the sound of his shallow breaths. "So," I continued, my voice still unervingly calm, "you really thought you could just disappear? Take what you wanted, leave me in the dust, and I wouldn't notice? That I wouldn't have my own resources, my own way to fight back?" Each word was a calculated jab, designed to hit him where it hurt the most. His arrogance. He'd underestimated me, and now he was paying the price. He finally spoke, his voice a low, guttural growl, stripped of its usual charm. "You had no right. That's company money, my investment, my future." The sheer entitlement in his tone made my blood run cold. He truly believed he was the aggrieved party, even now. It was a twisted display of narcissism that cemented every terrible suspicion I'd ever harbored about him. "Your future?" I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "What about my future, Mark? The one you just tried to steal? The car I bought, the life we built? Or rather, the life I thought we were building? You want your future? Let's talk about the past first. Let's talk about betrayal." I paused, letting my words sink in, knowing they were hitting their mark. "And then maybe we can talk about how you get any of your company money back." The line was still, a vacuum of his self-serving silence. He had no defense, no comeback. The weight of his actions, now exposed and financially crippling, was clearly pressing down on him. I could almost picture him, wherever he was, pacing a rented room, staring at a frozen screen. His grand escape plan dissolving into thin air. "So, here's what's going to happen," I stated, my voice firm, leaving no room for argument. "You're going to tell me exactly where my car is, how it was sold, and provide proof of transfer to its new owner. You're going to provide a full, detailed accounting of every single penny that went into that frozen account, and where you intended for it to go. And then we're going to talk about a divorce. A very public, very painful divorce for you if you don't cooperate." I paused, letting the implications sink in. "Your company money, as you so fondly call it, will remain frozen until I am satisfied. Until I have every detail, every document, and every assurance that you will not try to pull a stunt like this again. And believe me, Mark, I have the resources to keep it frozen indefinitely. I have the resources to make sure your future is nothing more than a legal nightmare." The silence this time was different. It wasn't shock, but a simmering, resentful fury. I could almost feel his hatred radiating through the phone, but beneath it, a tremor of fear. He knew I wasn't bluffing. He knew I had him cornered. "You'll regret this," he finally hissed, his voice raw with impotent rage. "No, Mark," I replied, a cold, hard certainty in my voice. "You already do." I hung up, the sharp click of the phone echoing in the silent house. My hand was shaking, but not from fear. It was the aftermath of a battle, the adrenaline slowly receding, leaving behind a profound exhaustion. But also a strange sense of vindication. He knew. He finally knew the extent of his mistake, the depth of my quiet strength. The next few days were a tense standoff. No more calls from Mark, only terse, legalistic emails from an unfamiliar attorney. He was fighting, of course, attempting to unfreeze the account through official channels. But I had been prepared. My own attorney, a sharp, no-nonsense woman I discreetly retained years ago for my independent ventures, was already on the case, armed with irrefutable proof of his deception and my ownership of the frozen funds. The car, it turned out, had been sold through a shady private deal, the cash likely intended to disappear into some offshore account. But now, with the financial tap cut off, his grand escape was nothing more than a desperate scramble. The silence from him wasn't surrender. It was the sound of a trapped man, calculating his next move, but with increasingly limited options. This wasn't the end, not yet. This was just the beginning of a long, arduous process of untangling my life from his, of reclaiming what was mine, and of rebuilding a future on my own terms. The betrayal still stung, a dull ache in my chest, but beneath it, a new feeling was taking root, a fierce, quiet sense of freedom. He had tried to break me, but instead he had only made me stronger. And he was about to learn just how powerful a woman with nothing left to lose could be. The reckoning. The legal battles dragged on, a slow, methodical chipping away at Mark's remaining illusions of control. My attorney, a true force of nature, meticulously documented every deceit, every fraudulent claim he attempted. The frozen account remained a powerful leverage point, his most urgent problem, and it kept him tethered, desperate for a resolution. He tried to paint me as vindictive, as unstable, but the paper trail of his actions spoke a far louder truth. One afternoon, a letter arrived, forwarded from my attorney. It was from Mark, a handwritten scrawl on thin paper. Not an apology, not truly. Instead, it was a plea, thinly veiled as a demand, for me to release the funds. He spoke of ruin, of lost opportunities, of his vision crumbling. There was still no genuine remorse, just a desperate self-pity. I reread it, a sardonic smile touching my lips. He was truly broken. I instructed my attorney to offer a settlement, a fair division of our legitimate marital assets, and a complete relinquishing of any claim he had on my independent company. Crucially, the funds in the frozen account would remain inaccessible to him until all conditions were met and the divorce was finalized. It was a harsh offer, designed to leave him with just enough to restart, but not enough to disappear or rebuild the life he'd planned without me. He raged, of course, but he eventually agreed. He had no other choice. The day the divorce was finalized was surprisingly anticlimactic. No grand pronouncements, no dramatic confrontations. Just a quiet signing of papers, a final severing of ties. I walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The car was long gone, and the memories associated with Mark would take time to fade. But I had my independence, my dignity, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I hadn't just survived. I had prevailed. The secret account, once a hidden sanctuary, had become my shield, a testament to my foresight and strength. I had lost a husband, but I had found myself. The email landed in my inbox like a digital slap across the face. Your vehicle, a 2022 car model, has been successfully transferred to a new owner. My stomach dropped faster than a lead balloon. The car. The one I'd saved for, painstakingly researched, and paid for with my own hard-earned money, now belonged to someone else. And the sender, a generic dealership, not my husband, Mark. I stared at the screen, a cold dread seeping into my bones. Mark had been distant, sure. Working late, distracted. His phone a constant companion he guarded with his life. I'd attributed it to stress, to the pressures of his startup. We'd even talked about his recent business trip, a critical investor meeting, in another state that was supposed to last a week. He'd left just yesterday, a hurried kiss goodbye, a vague promise to call. Now this. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through my bank statements. The joint account, our shared finances. Nothing seemed amiss. But then I remembered. Years ago, a small inheritance from my grandmother, a sum I'd meticulously invested in a quiet, independent venture, a passion project that had, unbeknownst to Mark, flourished into a significant holding. It was a safety net, a secret I'd kept not out of malice, but out of a quiet need for independence, a small corner of my life that was just mine. A frantic search through old emails confirmed my worst fears. The car title, a spare key, all gone. He hadn't just sold it. He'd liquidated it. And he'd done it in secret, while I was blissfully unaware, planning our next weekend getaway. The betrayal was a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. But then, a flicker of something else ignited within me. A cold, calculated resolve. If he wanted to play dirty, I knew a game he wouldn't expect. My mind raced, connecting the dots. The critical investor meeting was a lie. The hurried departure, the stolen car. It all pointed to one terrifying conclusion. He wasn't coming back. And he'd taken everything he could get his hands on, including my car. A wave of nausea washed over me, quickly replaced by a surge of something hot and unyielding. I wasn't a victim. I wouldn't be. I pulled up the company's financial dashboard on my laptop. Mark's startup, the one he'd poured his life into, the one I'd quietly helped fund with a significant, undisclosed investment from my grandmother's inheritance, was laid bare before me. Every cent, every transaction, every line of credit. And then there it was. A new account opened recently, just days before he left. A company account, but one I'd never seen, never authorized. It was substantial, clearly intended as his escape fund. My fingers flew across the keyboard, a blur of motion fueled by adrenaline and a righteous fury. The access codes, the security questions. I knew them all. He'd been careless, relying on my trust, on the assumption that I was oblivious to the intricacies of his business, let alone my own quiet empire. Within minutes, the transaction was complete. He froze the account, every single dollar locked down, inaccessible. The balance, a figure that made my jaw clench, was now beyond his reach. I leaned back, a shaky breath escaping my lips. The silence in the house was deafening, amplified by the hollowness in my chest. He thought he could disappear, leaving me with nothing but a void. But he'd forgotten one crucial detail. I had my own secrets, my own resources. And now, he was about to discover just how expensive his secret could be. The game was on. The next few hours were a blur of restless pacing and a strange, almost surreal calm. I ate nothing, drank only water, my mind replaying every conversation, every interaction with Mark, searching for clues, for anything I might have missed. He'd been so convincing, so charming, the perfect partner. The image of us, happy and carefree, doing mundane things like grocery shopping or walking our dog, now felt like a cruel mirage. How could I have been so blind? The silence of the house pressed in on me. I kept my phone close, expecting a frantic call from him, a desperate email, anything. But there was nothing. Not a peep. It was as if he'd simply vanished into thin air, confident in his escape, unaware that his grand plan had hit an insurmountable wall. This silence, though, was more unnerving than any angry outburst. It was the calm before the storm, the lingering quiet before the inevitable explosion. I thought about calling my sister, my best friend, anyone. But the words wouldn't form. How do you explain to someone that your husband, the man you loved and trusted, had secretly sold your car and vanished, only for you to secretly freeze an account he didn't know you owned? The story was too wild, too unbelievable. I needed to compose myself, to formulate a plan, before I could even begin to unravel this mess to anyone else. This was my battle for now, and I was going to fight it on my own terms. I pulled up my laptop again, not to check the account, I knew it was frozen, but to start researching. Lawyers, divorce proceedings, asset recovery. The cold, hard reality of my situation began to sink in, chilling me to the bone. This wasn't just about a car or a bank account. It was about the dissolution of a life I thought I had, the brutal shattering of trust, and the painful process of rebuilding from the ground up. The first ripple. The call finally came, not from Mark, but from an unknown number. I let it ring, watching the screen, my heart pounding a rhythm against my ribs. After the third ring, it stopped. A text message immediately followed. Mark is trying to reach you. He says there's a problem with a business account. Urgent. It was from his business partner, Sarah. A fleeting moment of satisfaction bloomed, quickly replaced by a fresh wave of anger. He wasn't even brave enough to call me himself. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. This was it. The first ripple in the pond I'd just disrupted. I texted back, choosing my words carefully. Tell Mark that his problem is directly related to his recent actions. He knows what he did. I suggest he explain himself directly to me. My fingers hovered over the send button, a wicked smirk playing on my lips. It was a calculated risk, a direct challenge, but one I was ready for. Within minutes, my phone rang again. This time it was Mark. His voice was tight, strained, a raw edge of panic I'd never heard before. "What have you done?" he demanded, skipping any pretense of greeting. "The company account, it's frozen. This is going to ruin everything." His words were a torrent of accusations, frantic and desperate. He sounded less like the man I married and more like a cornered animal. "What have I done?" I repeated, my voice a calm, even tone that surprised even myself. "I think the better question is, Mark, what have you done? And where is my car?" The line went silent. The long pause stretched, filled with his ragged breathing, and then a choked sound, almost a gasp. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected me.